Hey guys, Indy here. I haven't made a video for a while. I seem to go on these binges of either making videos or not making videos. I'm still about 2 months behind in my watching videos. But what's been a hot topic 2 months ago was the different expectations thread. I am through. I saw the Umbermancer, Sameoldji, Ivan Mike conversation, and I've gone from there through to Sameoldji's Mother May I video, I believe. So I thought I'd post some of the thoughts I had up to this point. First off, I thought Sameoldji's phrasing of an objective reality to be discovered versus now I don't remember how you phrased it, Sameoldji, but it was essentially a world to be created narratively. I thought that was a good continuing tweaking and getting more accurate version of just kind of what Ivan Mike had talked about, how when he was just talking about how he was discovering what he liked and what he didn't like, and that he liked there to be an objective reality for him to discover, that he didn't want as a player to be building the world. So I thought that was a really good thing. There was a criticism on one of your videos, Sameoldji of one of your videos. There was criticism levied that it wasn't a dichotomy, that it wasn't a spectrum, that some guys saying, like, in my games it's 60% this, 40% that, or whatever, and that you can do both at the same time. You had said, Sameoldji, that you can go from one side to the other. I think this is a 2 outs double play argument. You're talking about the two of you who are talking about that are talking about the same thing. If you look at classic Mendelian genetics and you look at the example for codominance, one that's usually used is the plant that has red flowers, white flowers, or pink flowers, that it's the double red chromosome that makes the red, the double white chromosome that makes the white, and when you have a red and a white, you get pink. Now, the interesting thing is you might looking like, oh, that's a blend. This is somewhere in the spectrum, right? You might be looking at this and saying this is a spectrum, and it's in the middle between the red and the white on the spectrum. But in actuality, that's not the case. If you get down at the cellular level, what you've got is some of the pigmentation in the cells on the leaf petal are red, some of them are white, and they are equally distributed and at about equal proportions. And thus, to our naked eye, it looks pink. But if you were to look at it under a microscope, you'd see red, white, red, white, red, white, red, white, red, interspersed. So I think this whole thing about whether or not you can play as a mix of those styles or simply go back and forth between those styles, those are the same thing, right? If you want to break it down, what you're having moments of one style versus moments of the other style, or you could look at it from a bit further back and say this is a blend of the styles. So I think it's the same thing either way. I do think that I didn't write down my points. Dang it. I do think that the different expectations definitely matter. Which one you prefer is definitely going to impact which kind of game you prefer, game system and game group that you'd prefer to get into. I think defining where you are on that spectrum and what you enjoy and what you expect to do in the group is probably a really good session 0 question and topic to have discussed. I, like anybody else, have my preferences, have my biases. I'm a 60-40, 70-30 kind of person. And I think you did describe this in the video, Sameoldji, when you had the paper laid out in front of you. I think you did cover this and say, like, once you have a GM, you start encountering a certain amount of GM authority. And I think that's true. The GM has an idea of what they're going to do, even if they don't have the specifics. They have ideas, and even if maybe they don't have ideas from a grander scale, but they're creating ideas on the fly just as the players are giving them topics, and maybe they completely roll with everything. I don't know. I do think that as a game, role-playing is not asynchronous. What is that? What is it called? An asymmetrical design, right? We discussed this a while back when one of the topics was whether or not the GM is a player, right? And does GM having fun, does that matter? It is a game. Everyone at the table are participants in the game, and thus they are players in the game, though there is then the terminology, like maybe capital P players, if you want to go that way, that distinguish the capital P players from the capital G, capital GM, GM or DM or storyteller or whatever your thing is. Maestro. There should be a game that calls it a maestro. Maybe there already is. But this is an asymmetrical design. Okay? And therefore, part of that asymmetry comes with authority. How much authority you wish to maintain a strong hold on as a GM, that's up to style, that's up to taste, that's up to preference. Maybe that's up to goal, right? Like if you're intending to tell a particular kind of story, then that might require a tighter grip a tighter hold on the reins, just to make sure that the story goes that way. Now, a good point that someone made, I think Sameoldji made, is that you could also just trust your players not to buck the convention, right? He didn't say conventions, right? But if you're in Iron Age, they're not going to bring a machine gun. You could trust that as well. But let's say you have someone who does it. Then it takes a GM authority to shut it down. You have to have GM authority, even if you intend on the GM using that authority lightly and sparingly. You still have to have it because you don't know who and what you're going to get at the table. Unless you have been playing with the same people for a long, long time. And there's some of us who get to enjoy that, and some of us who just don't. I will broach this idea. I haven't really dug into this idea a whole lot yet, but I think there's also the possibility that which your bend on simulationism might come into this a bit. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not saying that it absolutely does. I'm just saying maybe it does, because I think if you have a simulationist bent to you, then there is more objective reality, even when you don't know what that objective reality is, right? Like that's the situation where a player suggests something and it's on the fly, and then you have to GM on the fly. So you start thinking, and at least this is the way I handle it. I actually feel like I'm a junior GM when it comes to a lot of you guys out there. You start thinking through, like, okay, well, what makes sense here? What is this NPC thinking or feeling, or what were their goals? And maybe some of this you're making up on the fly. But once you make it up in the fly, then it is objective. And maybe, Sameoldji, maybe you did address that. But I do think that I'm wondering if a simulationist bent also comes into that, because I feel like you could go completely no prep and have the players invited into creating some of the reality. But if you have a simulation bent, you're also kind of checking how that fits in. right? And I think this also matters, like if you're playing fantasy or science fiction genre, whatever. Um, and the reality isn't this reality, right? Like you still have to work out simulation. Like, sure, physics might be a little different. Maybe there is magic. Maybe there are aliens, whatever. But the the simulation of those presuppositions working out. I kind of wonder if those don't uh, affect that a bit, or maybe it's just that a simulationist, someone with a simulationist bent, is going to go for an objective reality to be discovered kind of play. Um, now, here's my those are just some thoughts I had about the topic in and of itself. Here's a personal comment, and I do mean this. Preferences on my sleeve, like here they are. You see them on my forearm here. Preferences out in the open. I have a simulationist bent. I try to get away from it sometimes, and it just comes back. And I do like the idea of the GM having authority, and I do want some degree of objective reality, whether it's being discovered or whether because here's an idea completely on the fly. How about this? An incomplete objective reality to be narratively filled in. How about that? That idea completely made me lose my other track of thought. Poop. So, what I was doing was I was listing out my biases. I have a simulationist, but I try to get away from it sometimes. I want to practice more. I want to do something heavier on the narrative thing to be the undescribed world to be narratively filled in. I want to go more towards that. And I think as I do Mutant Year Zero, that's probably going to be, that might end up being the case. It might not. There's a lot of table generation and table use in that game, at least as far as I can tell so far. But when I get to Fate, that should definitely, when I get to trying out Fate, that should definitely put that under, get me some experience in that. So I have the bias that this is an asymmetrically designed game, and that means a GM has authority, and that it means that this game has a GM. Period. That there is some objective reality to be discovered, that there is some stuff has to make sense. This isn't a you're cool and awesome hour for everyone, because I'm not here to give you an endorphin rush. Go use drugs for that. Again, bias. Go through your bias. With those biases stated, no, one more bias. I also keep taking the bias that philosophically, I and myself and CGA have kind of had non-gaming topic-related discussions on Facebook lately about definitions and things like that. I believe in strong, strict definitions that resist change, because there's nothing wrong with creating a new word. And there's nothing wrong or personal or degrading about saying, this actually falls outside this Venn diagram. It does share these characteristics, but because it doesn't, it's in this other part of a Venn diagram, with those biases and philosophies stated, I do think, Sameoldji, that maybe you don't even like role-playing games. How's that? That's actually what I'm kind of thinking. Maybe you don't like role-playing games. Maybe you like cooperative story writing, which is a component of a role-playing game, but it does not rule it, because there still has to be the game. All activities are not games. All games are activities, but not all activities are games. Venn diagram overlapping stuff, right? Like, games are a subset of activities, and you can like it all you want, go for it. I would actually bet that if I was listening to some of your live plays with a really good narrative world to be filled set, I might, assuming that also like just the general genre and style is something that I have an interest in, science fiction and fantasy or something like that, that I would very much enjoy listening to it as a story, right? At that point, though, it's almost like I'm sitting in front of the TV watching a show. And from my perspective, engaging in that activity fails the definitions of games, which the definition of game is already a really fuzzy topic, right? Like you've got good old John Bain, R.I.P. Well, I don't think he's R.I.P. Total Biscuit. He made videos about what qualifies as game, and this is in the context of video games. There's a really interesting guy named Aaron Signal, who I would actually disagree with on a lot of philosophical topics, but he made a video called "That's Not a Game," and it's got a picture of the Death Star. So that's an interesting topic, right? Like, I'm heavy into the board games, and I've heard it said like, hey, Candyland is actually not a board game because it's not a game, right? Once you determine the turn order and you shuffle the cards, the ending is discrete at that point. There aren't multiple endings. There's no choice and there's no randomness. Thus, it's not a game. It is an activity, but it is not a game. And like in the video game world, there's discussion about whether or not there's a win-lose state, if that's required for a game. Oh, well, if you're playing Minecraft and creative, are you playing a game then? Like, so that what is and is not a game is already a fuzzy topic, and I welcome that discussion and debate. As long as the only philosophical place where I would like put a stake in the ground and say no is like, you can't do it from the point of view like, well, don't hurt people's feelings. It has nothing to do with hurting people's feelings. It has nothing to do with making people feel unwelcome. You're welcome into a role-playing game. You're welcome into a cooperative storytelling game. You're welcome to like whichever ones you like or not like either, or like both. You're welcome to do both, and it's all good. It's just, if you invite me into a role-playing game and then I start experiencing a storytelling, I'm going to be like, I thought you invited me for a role-playing game. There's no game here. We are role-playing, to be sure, but there's no role-playing game. Hey, if the hobby had only ever been titled RP, it'd be fine, but it wasn't. It was titled RPG. Okay, role-playing game. So anyway, so that's my proposal, my proposition, my view for someone of your particular taste, Sameoldji, and you're clearly, and I know you're not alone. You're just the strongest personality and lover of this style that I personally. But it's not really about role-playing games. You even actually, during the Umbermancer Ivan Mike discussion, at one point, and I don't have all the words right, I don't have a quote sitting down in front of me on paper, but you even said, I don't want that, whether it comes from the GM or it comes from the other players, I don't want that game coming down on me. That's very telling. You don't want that game coming down on you. You don't want a game to get in the way of your building a story. But this hobby is a game. And I would say that there is a very closely related hobby called cooperative story building, or cooperative story writing, that is not a role-playing game, but it shares a lot of the same aspects in common. And if one person enjoyed one of them, I would suggest that they also try out the other to see if they also enjoyed that one. But that's what I think of that style that you're into. Is that it is equally valid, not lesser, but different, definitionally different. To kind of get into genetics of the way, one of the ways I kind of think about that is, could these two things mate, right? Like a horse, what is it? I always forget which way it goes, right? But a horse, a horse and a donkey make a mule, but mules are sterile, right? So they didn't actually successfully reproduce. Whereas if you take a Saint Bernard and a German Shepherd, they successfully reproduce. They make another dog that is a blend of the two that can go out and have puppies. That's not true at least at these extremes. That's not true, right? If someone doesn't want a GM, there to be a GM. If someone doesn't want GMs to have authority, if someone wants to be completely equal, if people are constantly fine with just declaring what happens rather than checking to see what happens. And not that Sameoldji, you said that you didn't want dice in the game. You do use dice. It seems like you almost use dice to decide which one of two possible paths you want to narrate, right? It's almost like you're writing in the book. You and your other players are writing in a choose your own adventure book, and you're using dice to determine which page you turn to. Which, so maybe that still qualifies as a game. Maybe that's simply using the dice to determine which page you turn to. Does make it qualify as a game, but I find the two to be too non-interchangeable. Right? Like the second people start asking questions, Sameoldji, you want to bail, right? Like you don't like that, and you are, as you self-described as being a radical on that side. So maybe in my perspective, how they cannot interact is just from the radical point of view. If you're on the narrative reality to be created, if you're heavy on that side, you can't really, maybe it becomes difficult to interact with the rest of it. And I do think that maybe if someone's actually really, really like all they've ever done, whereas there's just this objective reality, and the GM is like a king on the throne, handing down everything, like your player dice rolls and your player attacks. Then yeah, maybe like those two ends can't meet. Maybe it's all this. Maybe all the stuff in between can interact. I don't know. It'd be interesting to delve into that and see how many people who are into one extreme, how well do with stuff on the other side of that spectrum, if you want to call it a spectrum. Anyways, this video is long enough. See you guys later. Have fun gaming, guys. Or not gaming. Whatever. Playing roles. Have fun, man.